Hi, welcome to Wisecat. Okay, so last time we were talking about getting hacked, dangerous plugins and things like that. And so one of the ways that those dangerous plugins get in and you get hacked is that you don't have a secured administrator account. So administrator accounts having, say, a weak password, and then it gets guessed. Now, there's a very simple way of preventing that sort of thing from happening to you with your Moodle, and that is multi-factor authentication. Multi-factor authentication has now been in Moodle for a couple of versions, maybe since 4.3, 4.2 or so. I really should have looked that up, but anyway, it's here. It's pretty robust and everything, so I thought in this video I'd go ahead and give you a look at multi-factor authentication and show you how to set it up. So I'm going to bring up my test Moodle behind me there, and I'm going to shrink myself down to the corner. So here we have a brand new instance of Moodle. If I go in and log in as my admin account, boom, you can see the tours and everything are popping up, and so you can see brand new Moodle. And I want to secure this Moodle first. I want to make sure that it's secure with multi-factor authentication. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Site Administration, and I'm going to look in my plugins here. Inside the plugins, I can find the section on Admin Tools, and multi-factor authentication is listed here underneath the Admin Tools. Now you can see that there's multi-factor authentication, reset user authentication factors, and manage multi-factor authentication. At the moment, we'll just go to multi-factor authentication in general, and we'll see all of the settings pop up. Reset and manage are both here. In manage, we can see all of the different types of multi-factors that we can use, and we can have a summary here of good conditions for login, unable to authenticate, that's because we haven't set it up yet. We can see below that, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger, here's where the actual multi-factor authentication itself gets enabled, and below that we have guidance files and guidance content, so we can actually give people guidance and show people how to set it up if you actually want to give them additional help. You know, based on the multi-factor authentication that you enable, you might want to give your users instructions. Now, you might not wish to have multi-factor authentication enabled for all accounts, for students, for example. So there are a few different ways that we can set it up, but ideally we want to have administrator accounts. Anyone logging in with full power to install plugins, we want them at least to be doing multi-factor authentication. So let's set it up. So looking through our factors list here, we've got non-administrator. We're going to want this one because that one means that if you're not an administrator, you get a factor of a weight of 100. So, okay, in English, what does that mean? Well, what this factor of weight of 100 means is that you need a score of 100 in order to, in this second factor, you need a score of 100 in order to log in. Now, if you are non-administrator, if a user trying to log in is not an administrator, we say, okay, that's good enough. They can get in with just a password. That's what this one here does. So you probably want to enable this one if you don't want your students and teachers, for example, to be forced to use two-factor authentication. All right, sorry, I should have just hit the back button. Back. So here we have non-administrator, that's enabled. Now, we also have different settings, for example, here, authentication type. This one is if you have, say, OAuth enabled on your server, then you can say, okay, if anybody has a manual account, for example, we'll say that we can let them straight in. If you have OAuth 2, for example, and people are clicking on their Google link or Microsoft link, for example, to log into your Moodle, then you might want to say, okay, the OAuth 2, I trust Microsoft people with Microsoft accounts enough to say that they don't need to have a second factor authentication. You have the opportunity to put that one in here. Leave page. Okay, next one is user capabilities. There are capabilities you can set if, you know, if there's a capability here that can be set for Factor capability cannot pass factor, which means it will fail this factor. You can actually set it so that this can be used. A user capability can be assigned to users that will enable them to pass a multi-factor authentication. Cohort, if they're a member of the cohort, they pass the multi-factor authentication. Email, and such, and so on. Now, they need a total weight of 100 to log in, but you don't have to keep each factor at 100. So, for example, you might say, okay, people in this cohort here, if we enable the cohort 1, and we'll say that that one's a factor of 50. So anyone who's a member of this cohort gets 50 points towards the 100 they need to log in. And I keep hitting the back to the wrong back. Here we go. So this one would mean that if I add them to a specific cohort, then that cohort, they get 50. They're halfway there on the second factor of authentication, but they might need a second one. So I might also add email, and say in the settings of email, say that one's also 50. So if somebody's in a cohort, then they can actually finish it up by using the email, for example. And just saying save changes there would actually enable that factor. Now, actually, email, cohort, a lot of these factors I don't really like, and I don't want to take a super deep dive into them. Because I want to just introduce the two that I think are the cream of the cream, the best second factors that you can have. So anyway, there are others though. I'll just go through the list rather than stopping at every one of them. Grace period. That one is basically after they've logged in once and then they log out. There's a certain period of time in which if they log in again, they don't get asked again. That's one that you might want to enable, but then again, you might not. IP range, if there's an IP address, and this one's fairly useful if you're, say, teaching at a university, and the university itself, if they're on premises, inside the university, it's probably either a student or someone who's officially going to log in. You can set that IP address, and you can set an IP range. That means anyone who's logging in from the school network, they are authenticated as, okay, you're probably who you say you are, so we're going to accept that. Again, you might not want to set that one to 100, but you can if you wish. No other factors. Now, this is a good one to actually enable while your users are getting used to two-factor authentication, because they have to set up their own second-factor authentication. So until they're fully set up, you can say, okay, we're enabling multi-factor authentication. Go in and set it up, and then we'll activate two-factor authentication from a certain date. And that way, they have a chance to get set up before you actually require the second factor of authentication. So this one allows people to get in if they have no other second factor configured. But you probably don't want to keep that one enabled forever. Okay, if they have a role, that can a given role can be a second factor. So, for example, you might say you don't want teachers to get in under the non-administrator rule, but if they have the role of student somewhere or something like that, or yeah, I think this actually might be a site-wide role needs to be. Yeah, but you can choose one of the other roles, and you can actually say, hey, if they have a role, then they get this factor. Or if they're non-passing roles, this is actually non-passing roles, so select all the roles that will not pass. So you have to use others. So you could actually say, you know, your administrator, manager, course creator, and teachers, or even non-editing teachers. You might want to set it, say, that much to say anyone who has, say, the cross-site scripting type capabilities. Let's say that they need to get a second factor in there, but the students can get straight in. Okay, so keeping on going down, I keep on clicking back like that. Okay, it's in admin tools, it's multi-factor authentication. That's what we're going to look at. Okay, so the other ones here, let's see. SMS mobile phone. This one you'd be required to actually set up, say, an AWS chain. I think it's called, is the API that would allow you to send SMSs to mobile phones, registered mobile phone numbers, and then they get the little code in their mobile phone and they can use that to log in. I definitely do not recommend that one. And the reason I don't recommend this one at all is because I think SMS should be dead for authentication. It encourages SIM swapping and a bunch of other problems that the world would be better without. And also, I don't have a mobile phone number, so that one would be useless to me. Trust this device. That one is another one that's actually somewhat similar to the grace period, but it means that the user can actually say, trust this browser on this computer, this setup here. If you recognize that this is the setup, then say, okay, this is where somebody regularly logs in, so we can trust that device, and then they don't have to be bothered with second factor all the time. So that one can reduce the amount of difficulty that a user might have in authenticating. Authenticator app, this is all the way down the bottom, but it should be all the way up the top, I think, because this is one of the best. Right? This is where you actually use an Authenticator app on your phone, and it doesn't require internet access, it does not require a phone number, it just generates a time-based one-time password, which is 6 digits. You input that as the second factor, and you're authenticated. It can work whether you have an internet connection on a phone or not. It can work wherever you are. Some password managers also allow for Authenticator apps to, Authenticator tokens to be configured in there as well for the password manager. So it's actually a very convenient one as well. So it's the number one that I would like to recommend. And it's the one that I'll be demonstrating in this video later on. And security key here. Security key, this actually refers to things like fingerprint scanners and YubiKeys and things like that. So USB YubiKey type stuff. Also passkeys. Generally speaking, passkeys is what we're talking here. WebAuthn is the technology there. And so some password managers do have security key, WebAuthn enabled on it. Not going to be demonstrating this one today because this one would require HTTPS, and I'm just running on a local Vagrant, so I'm not going to be demonstrating that one. But this one is one, security key is indeed one that would get my sign of approval. Okay, so if we're going to engage a few, we'll say non-administrator 100, sure, no problem there. Now let's go to Authenticator app, the one that I really like, and let's set that one up. So we go into the settings down here. Right, we click enable factor. We can check that checkbox. This is the same as opening the eye on it in the previous page. Factor weight 100 sounds good to me. TOTP verification window, and so this is the number of seconds that it's valid for. So this is mainly because most of these codes are going to be 30 seconds. Right, so 30 seconds is going to be the sort of the grace period, because sometimes people might be a little bit slow getting that last digit entered or something, so we give them 15 seconds of grace on either side. You can change that down to 10 or something if you think nobody's going to have that problem. Show the mobile app setup link. So you will have a direct OTP auth link that could be useful for some users to get them set up. So you have that option as well. So let's enable this one. And now that those changes are saved, if we go back to the multi-factor authentication page though, there is still no place to enable that authenticator. All right? Although we've got the Authenticator app listed, it's enabled and everything, multi-factor authentication itself is not enabled. And so if I go to my profile page, or sorry, my preferences, you'll see that I still don't have here in my user account box here, I do not have any ability to set up my second factor authentication. Right? I don't have manage multi-factor authentication plugins. But if I go back, okay, now I want to go back. I want to go back again. Right, and now I want to go in the general MFA settings. So this is under the plugins, multi-factor authentication. In here, general multi-factor authentication settings, I want to enable it. And then I can also set another setting here, which is a good one, is lockout threshold. So how many times can I mess it up before I am locked out of the server? Now the default is 10. Maybe you could go down to say 3, and that'll lock them out for a few times or something. The lower than this number, the more secure it's going to be, but you might want to give people at least 1 or 2 or 3 attempts to authenticate with that second factor. You know, for example, scanning the fingerprint might not work the first time or something like that, so that you're not locking them out on the first try and getting a whole bunch of people coming to your office and asking you to let them in, unlock their account. So once we've enabled multi-factor authentication as a general plugin here, with the summary of good conditions, okay, not an admin, and using TOTP app would be 100. So now we can enable that, and we enable that by saving the changes. Right. Now, at the moment, if I log out, I'm going to pretend to log out by opening my Moodle in a new private window. So now I'm not logged in. If I try to log in now, let's see what happens. So new session. I try to log in. Unable to authenticate. I would have locked myself out. Now this is the dangerous part of two-factor authentication, because if I don't have a method to authenticate set up, I could have locked myself out. You'd have to go in, say, you know, fiddle with the database or something like that to let yourself in again. So to prevent that from happening, until we have it set up, let's enable this no other factors one. If I do that, now that one's set up, and on settings I just have factor weight. That's the only setting available on that one. All right, now if I come back here and if I log out again, but this time I'll try to log in again on this private window, and that time it let me straight through. So that's let me in because I don't have any other factors, which itself is being considered a factor. I have no other factors configured, which in itself is a factor, giving me a weight of 100. So I'm allowed to get in if I don't have anything else set up. Okay, but let's set up an Authenticator app so that it's easier for me to log in. Now, the Authenticator app, here we go. We're going to want to go to Preferences. My preferences in my user menu here. And now that we've enabled multi-factor authentication, I've got this new option here for multi-factor authentication preferences. I'm going to click on that. And I only have the option for Authenticator app. If you had other factors enabled, they'll appear here as a bunch of tiles. And there's a friendly little setup button. So let's set that up here. All right, so set up your Authenticator app. So give your device a name. Now it's a good idea to name this after the device. For example, the mobile phone. I'll be using this one. And we'll call it, I don't know, brown phone. Yeah, funky spellings and everything. Right, now what I'm going to want to do with this is I'm going to want to add my mobile phone app. So I'll unlock my phone. And I've actually installed on this phone the Google Authenticator app, right? Google Authenticator, you can see it up there. Now, Google Authenticator is a fairly decent one. They do offer to save your second factor keys, the secrets that are used to generate the keys. They do offer to save that in the Google Cloud. If that's something that doesn't tickle your fancy, doesn't make you feel good, you can go to FAS Auth or Free OTP or any of the others. Pick one that you actually like. You're allowed to, TOTP is a fairly established technology, so there are many, many apps out there that can do it, including some password managers, which can be pretty cool too. Anyway, in here, I've opened my Google Authenticator app, and I have a button there that says Add a Code. So I'm going to add a code. And I get the option inside of my app to scan a QR code. And this is by far the easiest way to do it. I have now my scanner place that's saying, hey, scan your stuff. And so I'm going to scan that QR code on the lid. And when I did that, boom. Now I've got my 6-digit code is coming up like this. All right, so I now have test Moodle on Vagrant and it's giving me a 6-digit code. To make sure that it is being set up correctly, it will now ask me to enter that verification code here before I actually save the changes. So if I go here and go 431756, that's the code that's on the screen at the moment. And so I add that and save changes. And now it's set up. Okay, so let's test that out. And this code, by the way, changes every 30 seconds. And if you're using it on a phone, by the way, in the Google Authenticator app, tapping on the code while it's displayed, just tapping on it, will copy it to the clipboard so you can paste fairly easily while using it on the phone. Okay, so I have that one there, Authenticator app. I can also add more if I have others, or I can, oh, I don't think I can add more, but I can use this one. I can replace it with another as well. All right. So let's go and test it out, shall we? So I don't want to lock myself out again. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to try to log in again with this private window here, and to that. And now I'm being asked for 2-step verification. I'm being asked to verify it's you by mobile app. So it's reminding me of what second factor it expects. Note that this only appears after I've entered my password. So I've passed the first factor, now I've got to enter the second factor, which currently is 052988. And that got me straight in. Okay, so that's how you set it up for yourself. Now, that might not be massively simple to do, which is why you might not want to do it with students straight up. In fact, I would really recommend get your admins doing it first, get your teachers doing it second, teachers, managers, you know, the people who actually have some power on the website, get them to actually do it first, but specifically admin accounts. I really, inside of the inside here, when we're looking at multi-factor authentication, I really do appreciate this whole not administrator as a factor. That's so awesome. It's just, it makes perfect sense there. So that one's a really good one to enable, I would say. Okay, if I added IP range here, let's add a few more factors, by the way. So IP range, if I do that one, let's say I am on 192.168.56. Let's say I'm just going to go with the 0, and I'll go / and 816.24. 3 levels. So I'm just going to go with CIDR format like that with a / 24. That'll work as well. Oh, you could even just do that 10 to 20 or something like that if you want. So that's pretty good. You got granular control on that. If I do that, oh, I'm in the private window here. Okay, log out, log back in. Let's try logging back in this time. Will it ask me for a second factor? Nope, because I've already authenticated by being on this network, right? So that's why that one worked there. If I come back here to my plugins, go to my second admin tools, manage factor authentication. If I go to my IP range and say settings, say, okay, let's make that 80. Now being on this IP address, being on this network, only lets me have 80 points and I need 100 to log in. This time, it should ask me to go back. I'm going to shrink myself down again. I'm feeling a little too big. Whoops, sorry. I'm sorry if you couldn't see stuff before. I forgot that I was big. Okay, so here we go, logging in with the username and password. Let's see what happens. I am on the same network, but that's only set to give me 80 points. and now I need another factor because 80 points is not enough to get me over the magic 100. So it's asking me for my two-step verification, 866851, and there it is. All right, just grabbed it from the mobile phone. Okay, so I'm going to log out of that one again, because let's play with a few more of these factors, shall we? All right, so that's the phone thing. If I come back to site administration, go to plugins, admin tools, multi-factor authentication. So IP range. Okay, so that's how IP range works, and I'm going to switch that up. By the way, if you want to have more IP addresses, you can just have them all by, I think, just an enter, one per line. Yeah. So you can have as many as you like. One per line just makes it work. Yeah, so that you can easily do. All right, let's get rid of that one and replace it with, what else should we look at? Authentication type's not that interesting. The email one, okay, 50%. If I say only 50% for that one, this would be an option as well to have the Moodle send me an email, and if it's 50 and I've got it set with the IP range, which is 80, then this will be allowed. So actually, let's try that. Let's enable this factor with 50. And if I save changes here on that. Okay, so that's 50. If I go back to multi-factor authentication here. So has no other factor set up. When email is set up there. So email alone, no good. But email plus IP address range should also be, yeah. So is on a secured network, that gives you 80, and email setup. That's another pattern that could get you in. Right? So the total weight being 130. That means that if I'm on the secured network, then email will be an option. Right? So let's try that. Let's go log out. Oh, I shouldn't be doing this like this, but anyway, log back in. Verify by mobile app, or have a code emailed to you. That's an option there. All right, 279674. Do that one. Okay. So let's say if I go though to, let's see, going to plugins and Multi-Factor Authentication. Let's change the IP range one. So the IP range one only does, let's say it does 30. So it's not going to get us over. The combination of IP range and email is not going to get us over that magic, the magic 30 anymore. Magic 50 anymore, right? Sorry, magic 100. Sorry. So now the only combination of factors that can actually get me in is if I'm not an admin, if I'm using a TOTP app, and have other factors set up. Let's remove the TOTP one from, we'll take the TOTP one down as well. Authenticator app. Let's take this one down to say 80. And that, 80 plus 30 is going to give it the option. The TOTP app alone won't be enough, but TOTP app plus secured network will be enough. TOTP app plus valid email setup would be enough. Okay, let's say the email one though. Let's take the email one down to 10. We'll take it way down. All right. Let's see. Going back to multi-factor authentication there. Okay, so now TOTP plus email plus secured network, they would all have to be aligned in order for me to get above the magic 100. Right? TOTP app and on the secured network would also get me over 100, so I'd only really need the TOTP app in this particular case. All right, so let's take the TOTP app down another 20 and prevent this one from working. Okay, TOTP app. settings. Let's go down to 60. Save changes. All right, now what's our summary going to look like? Okay, can't be an admin. That'll get you straight in. Need TOTP app and email and secured network. All right. Let's also try trust this device. I'm going to enable trust this device as well. Right, so now that's expanded the bunch of quite well here because, yeah, has previously trusted this device becomes an option for all of them. And has previously trusted this device gets you 100%. So let's have a look at that. See how that one goes in. Okay, so let's have a look at if I do this on my private browsing one. Sorry, I'm just winging this stuff, by the way. Okay, now I have the code here, and I've got this option to trust this device for 1 day. So if I go 593.134, ooh, too old, huh? Ah, wait a minute. Okay. Let's try a fresh one. 726278. That one got me in. Now it's just sent me an email. I'm not actually going to be able to get that email, so I'm going to try the authentication one again. It's not going to let me do that because I've already used that factor. I need another factor to get in, so I'm going to cancel that login. Because this is a vagrant, it's not actually going to have the ability to send me... it's not going to have the ability to get me over there with... it can't send me an email, so I can't use email as a factor right now. Okay, so that's a whole bunch of them. Let's see if we can try another one here. Trust this device. I'm going to just disable that one quickly. Let's see. So, TOTP admin. I'm going to disable the email one as well. Wait, no, I'm going to enable the email one. Let's say. So these combinations here, at the moment, using a TOTP app and is on a secured network. Let's get rid of the IP range. Okay. So I would need the app there. Okay, let's get rid of the IP range. Okay. Is not an admin and has no other factors set up. Let's try that. Right. So now I've only got that. So this is the idea of, if I've got my TOTP, will it ask me for a second factor? It will. And it will ask me for one of those. And that one's going to be too old because it should be set to 30 seconds actually. 169491. Boom. And now it's trying to do the email thing again. But even if it did do the email thing again, it's not likely it'll get through because it won't get me, that won't get me up to 100% either. So I'd need something else as well. Okay, so IP range. The last one that I'd like to just go over quickly before we actually go in, Authenticator app. I want to get that one up to 70 at least so that it can be done with that. All right. And this time, the combination that we're going to go of is, we'll get rid of the no other factors. We'll say they're all set up, no problem. We'll get rid of email. Don't need that one. But what I am going to do is do trust this device one. Because the trust this device one has an interesting setting as well. Because you might say, okay, trust this device, but how long the trust duration? You might remember that just before when I was trying to log in, it only said trust this login for 1 day. So that way you can have the trust this device only applies for a single day, but you can actually change that to say weeks or months or something. So if I go trust this device, trust duration maybe say for an entire semester, which is about 15 weeks. So let's give 20 weeks. So that's half a year. They log in once, they authenticate once in the semester, and it's going to trust that browser that they're using because they'll probably continue to use it for 20 weeks. Right? You might not want it that long. You might want it for 20 days. You might want it 30 days or something like that. Good round numbers, use your discretion. But now, if I take that and try to log in one more time, a lot of logging in today. Now I have to verify it's you by mobile app, and 604793. That app has got me in, but also the trust this browser for 140 days was selected. Don't believe me? Rewind the video. But now, if I log out again, it should remember. Well, I'm in a private window. Is it going to remember? Let's see. Now, if I log in, it has remembered this session for this browser window. Probably if I closed Firefox down and stopped using the private browser window, it would probably forget it because the cookies and everything probably wouldn't be set properly, or the browser fingerprinting wouldn't be a possibility. So that's something that wouldn't happen. You can change how long in the settings there. Let's see. Anything else interesting worth looking at? Probably not at the moment, except for if I enable, say, the security key one. If I enable the... I'm not going to enable the email. Those are probably good enough. Now that I've got multiple factors enabled, if a user goes to their preferences and goes to the Manage Multi-Factor Authentication Preferences, you can see that the options appear here as they are. And if mobile phone was enabled, that would be another one I enabled here. This one here, security key, use a physical security key or fingerprint scanner, for example. If I try to set that one up using a passkey or something, I have Bitwarden installed here, which is able to use passkeys, but it's not going to be able to do anything. No HTTPS. Pretty sure HTTPS is a requirement for passkeys to actually work. So on your production site, it should work, because if you're not using HTTPS, you're really crazy. But I'm doing this on a local Vagrant server, local inside my own computer, so that's why it's not going to work for me to demonstrate that one right now. Anyway, this has been somewhat of a deep dive into I've already gone for almost 40 minutes now, so thank you very much for watching. If you've made it this far, then I hope you're about to set up multi-factor authentication for your own Moodle. The one thing that I just think bears repeating is when you go to the plugins and you go to multi-factor authentication, first time you set up this multi-factor authentication, please make sure you use the no other factors factor set to 100. Enable that one and make sure that you can actually log in using the private window technique or a separate browser to make sure you don't lock yourself out of your Moodle. But keeping these multi-factor authentication enabled and everything is very, very important for keeping your Moodle secure, in particular for administrator accounts. So I highly recommend setting up multi-factor authentication. It's slightly inconvenient, but the amount of security it provides is just phenomenally, it's just worth it. It's absolutely worth it. So go ahead, choose the factors that are most appropriate for you, and ideally, for example, if you're at a university, sure, set the IP range, change the weights as per what you like and everything, but don't just leave yourself staying insecure forever. That would not be a good thing. Okay. All right, well, at that, 40 minutes in, so thank you very much. Like and subscribe and tell your friends, and if you're coming to Moodle Moot in Japan in another month, I will see you there. Otherwise, until the next video, catch you later.